Listeners, the connection has been made, and we're standing by now for to have a chat with Phillip Paulwell, the opposition spokesman on energy and climate change. He has responded to the government's decision not to renew JPSCo's all-island license under its current terms. Phillip Paulwell argues that the conditions have changed substantially since 2001, and in fact is demanding new terms that better serve Jamaicans, and in fact criticizing the government for dragging its feet on the negotiations. We're very, very pleased to have with us this morning opposition spokesman on energy, Phillip Paulwell. Morning, Phillip. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. Morning to you and to your listeners. Good to be on the program.
Wonderful to have you. Phillip, as the minister who negotiated or was a part of the negotiations back in 2001 of this JPSCo license under the then PNP administration, how do you view the government's current decision not to renew this license?
All right. Well, first of all, I wasn't energy minister in 2001. I became energy minister subsequent.
Yes.
But of course, I was a part of the administration. And in my statement yesterday, I made it quite clear that the situation in 2001 was completely different from what it is now. In 2001, a decision had to be taken to do the divestment because the government at the time could not afford to do the necessary investments to ensure that we didn't have power cuts and so on. And it was a completely different time. Today, with the rapid advancement in technology, with the climate being completely different, I think it's important, and I have been signaling to the government from 2023 that they should start to do the necessary consultations to ensure that when the time comes for these negotiations, they are precise, they are well researched and thought through, and it would have national consensus. We haven't seen that, and my major beef is that the government has rejected, well, they have not continued the work of the Energy Council, which was necessary to bring consensus to the energy sector. That body no longer exists. And the government belatedly now alerting the country to its intention without being clear, as I have been, as to some of the specific reforms that need to happen to have a better deal for Jamaicans.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the, what was the mandate of the Energy Council like?
Right, so in 2012, the Energy Council was formed. It comprised stakeholders in the industry. People, you have experts, engineers, you have the major players, you have the consumers, and also I made sure the opposition was represented. And that body continued right up until recently, when it was no longer appointed by the minister. The body served a very important function. It's a body where you could share ideas, where you could formulate views, policies, and also they assist in implementation. And in this very critical area of energy, where we have seen since the change of government in 2016, the price of electricity almost doubling, not because of the JPSCo license, but because of bad policies. I believe that the Energy Council, the restoration of the Energy Council is vital at this stage.
And so should the PNP become the next government, that is something that I suspect that you would want to reinstate?
Day one, we will put back the Energy Council, and we will invite the opposition to be a part of it so that they would be aware of all the strategies that we are pursuing, especially as we go into renegotiating the license of JPSCo.
When you look at the way the energy sector has been run and also the services provided by the JPSCo, would you say that the objectives and the expectations as were laid out in the license that they were achieved?
Well, first of all, in relation to the government, nothing has happened since 2016 when we undertook those massive reforms in bringing LNG to Jamaica and bringing greater renewables in starting Wigton Wind Farm and so on. On the JPSCo side, There are disappointments. One major disappointment is the fact that since 2001, the level of electricity theft has increased, and so that the legitimate customer is paying about 20% on his bill for the theft of electricity by others. And I believe that both government and JPSCo have failed in bringing this under control. We have tabled in Parliament for the last 3 years a plan that is realistic, that is practical, that can deal with electricity theft, and not even a debate we have been able to get from this government on it.
Mm-hmm. Would a future PNP government, Phillip, support opening up the energy market to new players, or do you favor renegotiating the terms with the JPSCo directly?
Well, first of all, there are various segments of the energy market. You do have the generation side that we had opened up. So you have a number of players who generate electricity and sell to the grid. Mm-hmm. And that has worked reasonably well. We have to enhance that, and we have to enhance that. We remove this right of first refusal of the JPSCo. I believe that when it comes on to the grid, you can't have more than one grid in a country. You can't have somebody coming now to replicate that infrastructure. Mm-hmm. The option will have to be open if JPSCo and the government cannot arrive at an agreement for other players to operate the grid. But I don't think we're there as yet. I think in those negotiations that will happen with JPSCo, you have to insist on greater levels of efficiency on the grid. So those losses, both technical and non-technical losses, that we again have to pay for, will have to be diminished. And that's why it's so important for you to have a negotiating stance, strategy, inputs that will ensure that you cover all of these bases when you're negotiating. Pretty much the same way we did when we were negotiating with Cable and Wireless so many years ago.
Okay. Have you started contemplating what kind of recommendations you would want to make to the JPSCo to ensure that they deliver affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy to Jamaica?
Yes, well, we not only contemplated, but in my budget sectoral presentation on the 13th of May, I outline certain specific things. For example, in my presentation, I mentioned that I don't believe you should grant another 20-year license to anybody, that technology is changing so rapidly that you have to make sure that the country has enough legroom and space to embrace new technology. So we shouldn't go beyond 10 years. And in fact, I would love to see it lower than 10 years. I believe that we have to now allow individuals to have greater say or to be able to deliver electricity for themselves using their rooftops, and where they're able to produce more than they need to be able to sell that back to the grid. I also mentioned in those recommendations that I believe those operators in what we call free zones and special economic zones must be able to generate and distribute electricity within the zone, because we're not seeing many takers of free zone space because of the current high price of electricity. I believe as well that you have to now incorporate many consumer protection provisions in the law, in the license, so that, for example, when due to high voltage, somebody's equipment is damaged, your refrigerator, your TV, because of high voltage, the JPSCo must pay for that. And those things need to be spelled out in a license. So I'm very clear on what ought to be achieved. In fact, I intend to, before the end of this week, present my version of what proper license should look like.
Okay, we're looking forward to hearing more about that. I spoke with Daryl Vaz just before you came on, Mr. Paulwell, and he made reference to an emergency fund, which he says currently has about $53 million, and intimated that the JPSCo is making claims, I think, for based on Beryl, for $26 million. But he went on to indicate that the fund only benefits the company but not the customer. Do you recall the details of that emergency fund, and is there anything to be embarrassed about in terms of its structure?
No. So these are funds that are established worldwide, and in fact, it is in lieu of for the customers paying for higher insurance.
Yes.
And when damages do occur, there is a vetting process and auditing that allows for the company to be fully restored. It's like an insurance policy, and it was fully embraced by previous governments before. What we have to make sure is that a claim on the funds must be justifiable, and we must maintain such a fund.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. My final question to you, Philip. Daryl Vaz has been beating upon all those who would have been involved in negotiating this deal. What do you want to say to him directly this morning?
Well, I think that the minister is pivoting away from the fact that this government has failed miserably to improve the energy systems in Jamaica to get the price of electricity down. He needs to answer the question, why, having handed over the country energy sector in 2016 at a price of 25 US cents per kilowatt hour, that was what customers were paying in 2016. Why has it gone up to 40, up sometimes 50 US cents per kilowatt hour under his regime? And it's not just because of the license, it is because of bad policies. Bad policies.
All right. Philip Paulwell, thank you for your time and your thoughts, and I wish you a great day today. Nice talking to you today.
All the best to you, my brother.
All right. Take care. That is, of course, Philip Paulwell, and he is the opposition spokesman on